The one with the late Thanksgiving is a solid episode of Friends, as has been the case with the entirety of season 10. It's a solid episode, and I feel like it's maybe one of my all-time favourites from season 10. Certainly, it's absolutely fantastic. This is the 8th episode of season 10. It's directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. With this one, I'll go through things chronologically. Usually with Friends, I'll talk about each part of the narrative in turn, but with this one, everything's connected, so we're just going to go through things in chronological order. And it starts off with Monica and Chandler coming into Central Park, and I feel like that has happened a lot in season 10, with Monica and Chandler coming into Central Park and talking to the group or whoever's there. Not a complaint necessarily, just an observation. And they say that this year they don't really have the energy to host Thanksgiving, but everybody is upset by this, and Phoebe manipulates the situation by remarking that, well, last year's Thanksgiving dinner wasn't very good anyway, but then maybe this year Monica could compete with herself and do a better Thanksgiving this year, and Monica is sold. She's going to host Thanksgiving now. Phoebe then wants to enter Emma into a baby beauty contest, and Rachel doesn't think this is a good idea until she learns the prize is $1,000, but they can't tell Ross. And I think this is really interesting because I feel like Phoebe wouldn't be the kind of person to want to be involved in beauty contests, particularly for babies, whereas Rachel, that seems more like her kind of thing. So it's interesting that I feel like, in my opinion, their responses to just the existence of this pageant was kind of the reverse. And we see something with this with Joey a little later on, but I'll talk about that when we get there. We then cut to Monica and Chandler. Chandler is watching the parade, Monica is prepping dinner, and we have some subtle decor changes to give it a more classic Thanksgiving autumny colour palette. They're small changes, but it's very effective. And Chandler remarks that this time next year they could be just the two of them with little Hemingway Bing. And I actually like that name. I think Hemingway Bing is a really nice name. Ross and Joey then come over and well, I love this scene, but Ross and Joey come through the door and Ross says, guess what Joey has? But all I can hear are the bloopers. There are quite a few bloopers actually from this episode. Well, they're not bloopers. They're Matt LeBlanc saying the wrong thing to get a laugh, and it's very, very effective. So definitely worth looking out for that if you haven't seen it. But it does override the actual line, but it's fabulous. But what Joey actually has, he has tickets to the Rangers game. It's at 1 o'clock, dinner's at 4, so Chandler says, well, we can't go, we won't make it back in time. Whether or not Joey listened, we'll find out in a second. We cut to the pageant. It's already 3 o'clock. That's quite a significant jump in time. And Emma's there in a little cowgirl outfit that they took off of Joey's Cabbage Patch doll. And she does look adorable. I don't agree with baby beauty pageants, but she does look very, very sweet. And it's quite a nice atmosphere. It's quite a small space, but there are a lot of people around. It feels believable. It feels realistic. And then we're at the game with Joey and Ross. And Joey is the one who suggests they leave. And Ross is the one who says they can stay a little bit longer. Just as we had Phoebe wanting the pageant and Rachel initially not, we have Joey being the responsible one and Ross not being as responsible. Granted, the real responsible thing would have been to not go to the game. But it's just interesting that the characters there are maybe behaving in ways that are atypical, and it's quite interesting. Then Ross and Joey finally getting back after the game. Joey's got a giant foam finger. They're about to enter the apartment. They think they'll be fine because, yes, they're late, but Rachel and Phoebe will be there. And then Rachel and Phoebe come up the steps behind them. And they're there with Emma and the trophy. Emma won. And Ross is initially obviously annoyed by this, but then he finds out there was a cash prize. His tune has changed as well. And now they need to come up with a solution for why they're late. Ross suggests saying they were mugged, and Joey steals his pocket. Beautifully executed, very well done. And they play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to go into the apartment first, or who has to go into the apartment first. And we have, again, some great outtakes from this particular scene that are so enjoyable, and I can only see those when watching this scene. Definitely worth looking out for. They're about to go in. The door is locked. Monica and Chandler knew they were outside and they're annoyed at them, which is understandable. and they end up sticking their heads through the door, and we have the floating heads, which is one of the most delightful classic Friends scenes. In fact, I think a lot of people recreate this when they go to the Friends experience. Unfortunately, when I went, it was a fabulous time. I was one of the first people in the queue, as I booked very, very early, like one of the first slots, so it wasn't actually that busy. But it was just after lockdown had lifted, so we weren't allowed to really interact with as much of the sets as I would have liked. The corridor, actually, that set, for some reason, was the only one, this is an aside, but it's the only set that was actually blocked off, the corridor between the two apartments. I don't really know why. I guess because it is a relatively enclosed space, whereas everything else, you could sit on the sofa in Central Park, you could walk around the apartment. I don't think you could sit on the chairs. I think they had, like, wrapping on them or something, if I remember. But yeah, certainly I've seen a lot of people recreate the floating head scene, and I would have liked the opportunity, but never mind. And then we find out, and this is when I personally got annoyed, Phoebe and Rachel forgot the pies. And suddenly that's not them just arriving late, that's them completely forgetting to do the thing Monica asked them to do. And I got annoyed at them on Monica's behalf. The others decide then they're going to have their own Thanksgiving. They all, Ross, Phoebe and Rachel, slip their heads out of the door, but Joey is stuck. Joey is stuck in the door, and they start to turkey grease his head to see if he can slip his head out. And we have some great conversation about where Chandler's tools are, the way that unfolded, and everybody had their own input there, beautifully executed. In general, the dialogue in this episode is just fantastic. And once the others have finished putting things down Joey's trousers, they push him as Chandler pulls on the door, and the chain snaps, the door flings open, and Joey makes a mess everywhere. Monica comes through from the other room, from the bedroom, and she doesn't care about the mess. She looks almost upset, confused, and we learn very quickly that a woman has chosen them. They're getting a baby. And I thought that was a beautiful way to end the fight and to just instantly pick things back up again. And as I've mentioned before, I think the pacing with the adoption story has been really fantastically executed. I think they've done a really good job with it. And I don't want to say too much more about that. Of course, I don't want to say what's to come, but I do think everything was balanced out really well. We get a little bit of information every now and then, but it's not the main focus all the time. And I think they've paced it out really well. And this is a fabulous episode. I kind of want to say it's my favourite Thanksgiving episode, but at the same time, there are some great ones. I'm not sure. Let me know if you have a favourite Thanksgiving episode. But for now, I can certainly say whether or not it's my favourite, the one with the late Thanksgiving is a pretty perfect episode of Friends.